Stop witchcraft instantly. Silence your doubts. Stand firm. Today is not a day for fear, excuses, or invisible enemies. Today is a day to reclaim your mind, your discipline, and your power. Nothing controls you unless you allow it. Nothing enters your life unless you leave the door open. The moment you master yourself, all darkness loses its grip. What people call witchcraft is often not magic. It is fear without control, thoughts without discipline, and emotions without direction. It is the poison of believing you are weak, vulnerable, or powerless. The greatest spell ever cast on humanity is the lie that you cannot change your condition instantly. A strong mind cannot be invaded. A disciplined life cannot be manipulated. A focused spirit cannot be shaken. Look closely. Negativity survives only where awareness is absent. When your routines are chaotic, fear grows. When your body is neglected, your confidence weakens. When your thoughts wander, outside influences appear.
Powerful. This is not mystery. This is cause and effect. The solution is simple, but not easy. Wake up early. Train your body daily. Control what you consume. Food, media, words, and thoughts. Breathe deeply and stand upright. Speak less. Observe more. Act with intention. When you strengthen your body, your mind becomes sharp. When your mind becomes sharp, fear disappears. When fear disappears, no force, real or imagined, can touch you. Protection is not found in rituals. Protection is
built through discipline. Power is not borrowed, it is earned. Right now, choose responsibility over superstition. Choose strength over excuses. Choose action over panic. The moment you take control of your habits, your posture, and your focus, every false power collapses. Stand up, clean your life, train your body, sharpen your mind. Do not wait, do not hesitate. Start today, because the strongest protection you will ever have is the disciplined version of yourself. What most people fear is not an external force, but the lack of control within themselves. When the mind is undisciplined, it becomes an open field where anxiety, rumors, and imagination run wild. Thoughts are accepted without inspection, emotions react without command, and fear is mistaken for truth. This is where the illusion of unseen powers takes root. A mind without structure searches for something to blame, something to explain discomfort, hardship, or failure. Discipline closes that gap. The moment you begin to command your thoughts instead of obeying them, confusion loses its authority. The mind must be trained the same way the body is trained. Repetition, resistance, and awareness. You do not wait for motivation to appear. You create order first. Wake up at a fixed time, sit in silence and observe your thoughts without reacting. You will notice how restless and chaotic they are. This is not weakness, this is untrained potential. Each time you notice a thought and let it pass, without following it, you strengthen control. Over time, the mind becomes quieter, sharper, and more resilient. Fear cannot survive in a mind that observes instead of panics. Many believe protection comes from external objects, words, or rituals, but real protection comes from clarity. When the mind is clear, suggestion has no effect. When the mind is stable, negativity cannot attach itself. Discipline removes emotional excess. You stop exaggerating problems. You stop feeding anxiety with attention. You stop giving power to things that do not deserve it. This is why a disciplined person appears calm in situations that shake others. Calm is not passivity, it is control. Every distraction weakens the mind. Endless noise, constant scrolling, meaningless conversations, and uncontrolled consumption dull awareness. A dull mind becomes fearful. Fearful people imagine threats everywhere. Discipline means choosing what enters your mind, what you watch, what you listen to, what you repeat in your thoughts. If you constantly consume chaos, your inner world becomes chaotic. If you choose simplicity and focus, your inner world becomes stable. Control of the mind also means control of language. Words shape perception. Speaking negatively about yourself or your situation reinforces weakness. Complaining trains the mind to feel powerless. Silence, on the other hand, strengthens observation. When you speak less, you think more clearly. When you think clearly, fear dissolves. Undisciplined mind does not react immediately. It pauses, assesses, and responds with intention. Breathing is the bridge between body and mind. Slow, controlled breathing calms the nervous system and brings awareness back to the present moment. When fear arises, the breath becomes shallow. By correcting the breath, you correct the state of the mind. This is not symbolic, it is biological. Control the breath and the mind follows. Practice this daily, not only in moments of stress. Training in calm conditions prepares you for pressure. The mind that is disciplined does not deny challenges, but it refuses to be dominated by them. It does not look for invisible enemies because it understands cause and effect. It knows that strength is built internally and expressed externally. Such a mind becomes unshakable, not because nothing happens, but because nothing unnecessary is allowed to take control. The body is the foundation through which the mind expresses strength or weakness. When the body is neglected, the mind follows into instability. Fatigue creates doubt. Weak posture invites insecurity. Poor health lowers tolerance for stress. A person who feels physically fragile is more likely to believe they are vulnerable to outside forces. Strength of the body is not about appearance, it is about presence. A strong body grounds you in reality and pulls you out of imagined threats. Physical training builds more than muscle, it builds resilience. When you expose the body to When the body is neglected, the mind follows into instability. Fatigue creates doubt. Weak posture invites insecurity. Poor health lowers tolerance for stress. A person who feels physically fragile is more likely to believe they are vulnerable to outside forces. Strength of the body is not about appearance, it is about presence. A strong body grounds you in reality and pulls you out of imagined threats. Physical training builds more than muscle, it builds resilience. When you expose the body to the nervous system, an upright spine, relaxed shoulders, and steady gaze signal readiness. The body constantly communicates with the brain. When posture is weak, the mind feels weak. When posture is strong, the mind becomes alert and confident. This is immediate and measurable. Strength begins with how you stand, how you walk, and how you occupy space. Daily movement is non-negotiable. Stagnation weakens circulation, hormones, and mood. Strength teaches the body to produce power. Cardiovascular, the nervous system. An upright spine, relaxed shoulders, and steady gaze signal readiness. The body constantly communicates with the brain. When posture is weak, the mind feels weak. When posture is strong, the mind becomes alert and confident. This is immediate and measurable. Strength begins with how you stand, how you walk, and how you occupy space. Daily movement is non-negotiable. Stagnation weakens circulation, hormones, and mood. Strength control begins with what you allow into your life. Each day, every influence you accept shapes your internal state, whether you are aware of it or not. What you eat affects your energy. What you watch affects your perception. What you listen to affects your emotions. What you repeat in your mind affects your identity. Most people live as open containers, absorbing everything without filter, then wondering why they feel disturbed, weak, or restless. Lack of control over inputs creates chaos inside, and chaos invites fear. The environment you or place yourself in either strengthens or weakens you. Constant exposure to noise dulls awareness. Endless entertainment fragments attention. Negative conversations normalize helplessness. When the mind is constantly stimulated, it loses the ability to stay present. Presence is replaced by anticipation, regret, or fantasy. This disconnection from the present moment makes imagined threats feel real. Control means choosing simplicity over excess, reducing unnecessary stimulation, sharpens perception, and restores inner stability. Habits are invisible forces that govern behavior. Repeated actions shape character more than intentions ever will. When habits are unconscious, life feels out of control. When habits are intentional, life becomes predictable and stable. Stability removes fear. Simple habits done consistently are powerful. Drinking water upon waking, moving the body daily, limiting exposure to meaningless content, ending the day with reflection instead of distraction. These actions may appear small, but they build a structure that supports mental clarity. Attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess. Wherever attention goes, energy follows. If attention is constantly pulled outward, inner strength weakens. Social noise, comparisons, and opinions drain focus. Control of attention means learning to say no internally. Not every thought deserves engagement. Not every emotion requires reaction. Not every message needs response. This restraint creates space. On that space, awareness grows stronger. Fear feeds on uncertainty and exaggeration. When attention is scattered, fear multiplies. When attention is focused, fear shrinks. Focus anchors the mind to what is real and actionable. It replaces speculation with execution. Doing one thing fully is an act of discipline. Multitasking fragments the mind and creates restlessness. Restlessness invites anxiety. Anxiety seeks explanations beyond reason. Focus brings the mind back to reality, where action is possible. Control also involves boundaries. Boundaries protect energy. Without boundaries, you absorb other people's emotions, problems, and expectations. This absorption leads to confusion and fatigue. Learning to step back, remain silent, and observe without involvement strengthens independence. Independence reduces susceptibility to influence. A person who stands firm in their values and routines is not easily swayed by fear or suggestion. Sleep, nutrition, and rest are often ignored but play a critical role. Lack of sleep weakens judgment. Poor nutrition destabilizes mood. Exhaustion lowers resistance. A depleted system seeks shortcuts and explanations instead of solutions. Taking care of these basics is not weakness, it is strategy. A well-rested body supports a calm mind. A nourished system resists stress more effectively. Control is not about suppression, but about direction. Emotions are acknowledged, not indulged. Thoughts are observed, not followed blindly. Energy is guided toward growth instead of wasted on speculation. Over time, this intentional living creates internal order. Order replaces chaos. Clarity replaces confusion. The mind becomes less reactive, the emotions less volatile, and the sense of self more grounded in reality rather than imagination. Protection is not something that can be bought, borrowed, or found in symbols. It is built through consistent action, awareness, and discipline. Most people search for safety in external objects, rituals, or promises, believing that these will shield them from harm or misfortune. But true protection is an internal state, a product of preparation, resilience, and self-mastery. Without it, even the simplest challenge can feel overwhelming. The difference between vulnerability and strength lies not in what surrounds you, but in how you cultivate and maintain your own internal power. A disciplined person becomes untouchable because their stability is self-generated, not dependent on outside circumstances. The mind, body, and environment all work together to create protection. Each element reinforces the other. When the mind is clear and focused, fear cannot take root. When the body is strong and resilient, threats are less intimidating. When your environment is organized and intentional, distractions and negativity lose their influence. Protection emerges naturally from this alignment. It is not a defensive shield in the traditional sense. It is a state of being that prevents you unnecessary harm from ever entering your life in the first place. The more disciplined and intentional you are, the less susceptible you become to chaos or manipulation. Consistency is the foundation of real protection. Small repeated actions accumulate into a force that is greater than any single effort. Daily routines, habitual training, controlled consumption, and conscious choices form a network of resilience. Each morning that you wake up with purpose, each meal that nourishes rather than drains, each thought that is examined rather than accepted uncritically contributes to your internal armor. Protection is earned through this repetition. It cannot be conjured on a whim or borrowed from another. Discipline transforms ordinary actions into extraordinary safeguards. Boundaries are essential to maintaining protection. Without boundaries, energy is drained, focus is lost, and vulnerability increases. Saying no, distancing yourself from toxic influences, and remaining selective about what you allow into your life are not acts of weakness. They are deliberate strategies for survival and growth. Every boundary you set reinforces your autonomy. Every moment you choose discipline over indulgence strengthens the structure of your inner defenses. Real protection comes from having control over where your attention, energy, and effort flow. Awareness is the central pillar of protection. A person who is aware of their thoughts, emotions, and surroundings is not easily startled, misled, or manipulated. Awareness allows anticipation. It allows preparation. It allows action before chaos can take hold. Ignorance, by contrast, invites fear and opens the door to unwanted influence. Protection is cultivated by observing patterns, recognizing vulnerabilities, and responding deliberately rather than reacting impulsively. This conscious vigilance is what separates those who feel safe and empowered from those who constantly feel at the mercy of forces beyond their control. Every action that strengthens the mind and body multiplies the effect of protection. Controlled breathing, physical training, disciplined routines, mental clarity, and focused attention all serve as layers of defense. These layers are interdependent, forming a resilient system. The stronger each layer becomes, the less likely any challenge can penetrate. Protection is therefore not a single act, but an ongoing process. It grows incrementally through persistent effort and deliberate living. Over time, it becomes instinctive, a natural state of strength that requires no external validation, only continual practice. Action is the bridge between intention and reality, the mechanism through which internal strength manifests in the world. Knowledge, discipline, and awareness are meaningless if they remain unexecuted. They are like tools left in a shed while the work of life passes by. Every person who feels powerless in the face of external threats is often someone who hesitates, doubts, or waits for the perfect moment. The truth is, there is no perfect moment. Power is claimed in the act of doing, not in planning, not in waiting, not in wishing. Immediate action demonstrates mastery over fear, inertia, and uncertainty because it shifts energy from reaction into creation. The first step in meaningful action is decisiveness. Indecision allows anxiety to grow, magnifying obstacles and turning imagined threats into real paralysis. When a decision is made firmly and elaborately, energy is focused and clarity emerges. Hesitation divides the mind, decisive action unites it. This is why the disciplined act swiftly and purposefully. They understand that delay is an invitation for doubt, that procrastination is the seed of vulnerability, and that every instant spent in indecision strengthens the very forces they seek to resist. Action is a declaration. I am in control, I am present, I am capable. Action requires alignment between mind, body, and intention. It is not brute force, it is calculated, deliberate, and synchronized. The mind provides clarity, guiding where effort should go. The body executes the task with precision and endurance. Habits and routines prime both to respond effectively without hesitation. When these elements are aligned, action becomes effortless in appearance but powerful in effect. Conversely, when the mind is scattered, the body is weak or intention is unclear, even the simplest action becomes laborious, prone to error, and less effective. Discipline transforms action into a weapon against chaos and fear. Courage is born in motion. Every time you act despite fear, hesitation, or uncertainty, you expand your capacity to respond in the future. Courage is not an innate trait reserved for the heroic few. It is cultivated through repeated intentional action. The more you confront challenges directly, the less intimidating they become. Action trains both the nervous system and the mind to remain calm under pressure. Through this repetition, you begin to realize that fear exists primarily in anticipation, not in the moment of execution. The act itself neutralizes the threat. Momentum amplifies the power of action. One step leads to another. One small success reinforces confidence, creating the conditions for larger victories. Inaction, however, compounds weakness. Hesitation allows disorder to grow, emotions to spiral, and opportunities to pass unnoticed. Discipline in action is therefore cumulative. Each intentional move builds the framework for the next, creating a self-reinforcing cycle of strength. Physical, mental, and emotional faculties sharpen through repeated engagement, producing results that cannot be achieved through thought alone. Action is also the antidote to external manipulation. When you act decisively and consistently, outside influences lose their power. Others' opinions, fear-driven narratives, or even imagined threats cannot sway someone who is in motion. Their attention is fixed on execution, their energy directed toward growth and progress. Action creates autonomy, reducing dependency on validation or reassurance from outside sources. It transforms potential into reality, theory into practice, and vulnerability into self-reliance. Awareness is the cornerstone of true mastery, the lens through which all actions, thoughts, and decisions are filtered. Without awareness, even the strongest mind, the healthiest body, and the most disciplined routine can be compromised. It is the silent observer within, noticing patterns, detecting shifts, and discerning truth from illusion. Most people live unconsciously, reacting to external circumstances, absorbed in habits and distractions, unaware of how their choices shape their lives. In this state, fear and uncertainty grow unchecked because there is no internal compass to navigate reality. Awareness is what separates those who are easily influenced from those who move through life with deliberate power and to take hold. Awareness is not a passive state, it is active engagement with reality, a conscious choice to notice without becoming enslaved by every stimulus. Attention is the practical expression of awareness. What you focus on grows in influence over your life. A distracted mind scatters energy, reacts impulsively, and amplifies imagined threats. A focused mind channels energy efficiently, neutralizing negativity before it escalates. Awareness trains attention. It allows you to detect subtle clarity. Developing awareness requires intentional observation. It begins with turning inward to notice the mind's tendencies. Thoughts that arise are not inherently true. Emotions that surge are not always justified. By observing without immediately reacting, the mind cultivates distance from chaos. This distance allows discernment, what is useful, what is harmful, and what is irrelevant. The more precise this observation becomes, the less room remains for fear, superstition, or manipulation. Shifts in your surroundings, in others' behavior, and in your own internal state It illuminates patterns that would otherwise remain hidden, providing insight into when action is necessary and when restraint is wiser. This discernment is critical because it ensures that effort is always productive, not wasted on illusions or distractions. Self-awareness is a profound aspect of this discipline. Recognizing your own triggers, weaknesses, and habitual responses equips you to anticipate vulnerabilities and respond proactively. When you understand what unsettles you or leads you astray, you can fortify those areas through habits, preparation, and focused training. Awareness transforms weaknesses into areas for growth rather than points of exploitation. It turns the mind into a tool rather than a battlefield, where clarity and foresight replace confusion and impulsivity. The more you cultivate self-awareness, the more your inner strength becomes reliable and consistent. External